which can be violent at times, so please stay out of that center aisle no matter what. That includes walking across the center aisle to switch sides of the train. You think you're sneaky? You're not. I see you do that. If I see you in the center aisle, I'm going to get on my microphone and ask you to return to your seating area. I'm going to come through the center aisle and I'll take a quick head count of all of you. If you have any questions for me, please save them for our trip back down the mountain. I will be more than happy to answer all your questions then. you turn off the cabin lights, please? All right, good afternoon. How are we today? Oh my gosh, you guys are tired already? Come on, how are we? Yes, thank you. Finally, I'd like to welcome you all to the Broadmoor Manitou Pikes Peak Cog Railway. You are riding on the highest cog railway in the entire world. Today we're going up 8.9 miles of tracks up to 14,115 feet in elevation. That's roughly a 7,000 foot change in elevation from our station down in Manitou Springs. And here at the Cog Railway, we've been open for over 130 years. We first opened all the way back in 1891. The only time we stopped taking passengers to the summit since then was between 2017 and 2021 when we did an extensive overhaul. We replaced every inch of the 8.9 miles of tracks we have. We refurbished our trains from the 70s, and we decided to buy 3 brand new trains. You guys are riding on one of those brand new trains today. This is a swoop-de-doop-de one. This one is called a 4-4. It was made in Switzerland, designed specifically to go up Pikes Peak. It's completely diesel electric. Our engines have about 510 horsepower, and our maximum speed is 15.5 miles per hour. I'm going to introduce our crew. You guys have heard me say the name Bree a lot. Where is Bree? Bree is all the way up front driving the train. Everybody say hi, Bree.
Hi, Bree.
Like I said, Bree's our engineer. She's responsible for getting us up and down the mountain safely. She has the most important job on this train. My name is Quinn. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Bree.
Hi, I'm just yapping to you the whole time, but I want to point out some cool things along our trip. But if I tell you all to look to your left, that doesn't work at all, right? Because we're all facing different directions. Everybody's confused. Not a good time. So, if it's okay with you guys, if I want to point out something on this side of the train, I'm going to call this our 2-seat side because this side has 2 seats. If I want to point out something on this side of the train, I'm going to call this our 3-seat side because this side has 3 seats. Is that okay with y'all? Yeah, all right, sounds good. Also, I don't want anyone to feel like they're missing out today. If I'm pointing out something on the opposite side of the train and where you're sitting, you are welcome to stand up within your seating area so you can get your pictures and you can see what I'm talking about. But please, whatever you do, you just have to stay out of the center aisle. Species of bird that typically doesn't visit the Rocky Mountains that made a nest on the 2-seat side of the train. So I want you guys to keep your eyes peeled. All right, it's pink. Can anyone tell me what kind of bird that is? It starts with an F. Fake. I'm testing the waters with you guys. I have to give you a bad joke right off the bat. First point of interest coming up, I promise. It's on our 2-seat side, and it's a rock. You're going to see a big boulder pass by your window with a little bush next to it. That's not it. We're going to wait for that to pass. As soon as it does, we're going to look straight across that little valley there, just below eye level. We're going to see Diamond Rock. If you can't tell, we're so creative with our names around here. We've called it Diamond Rock because it looks like the diamond off the face of a playing card. Now, the cool thing about Pikes Peak is it has its very own type of rock. Diamond rock and all the other rocks you see outside your windows are Pikes Peak granite, which is a 900 million year old mixture of mica, feldspar, and quartz, which you can see glittering in the sunlight. Pikes Peak granite is naturally pink in color. Down here at this low elevation, a lot of moss likes to grow on the rocks, so they look kind of blue and gray. But the higher we go, the harder it is for the moss to grow on the rocks, so the pinker they'll get. Pikes Peak granite is also pretty fragile. It'd be a very, very bad idea to make your countertop out of this type of granite. To get ready for the next thing I'm about to point out. You'll probably be able to hear it before you can see it. I'm not trying to scare you. It's a waterfall. On our two-seat side, we're going to look down instead of across to find this waterfall. It's right at the base of that big rock.
Oh, here it is.
I can hear it now. That waterfall is called Rose Emma Falls, which was named after two sisters, Rose and Emma, that lived in the area many, many years ago. All right, my three-seat side. Are you guys feeling a little left out yet? I'm kind of getting that vibe. Yeah, don't you worry. You have your own waterfall coming up, and this is the coolest one because this waterfall is higher up than Niagara Falls. All right, I want everyone to get their cameras ready on your three-seat side at eye level. Keep your eyes peeled for Minnehaha Falls. Minnehaha is a Lakota term for laughing or dancing waters. I see some confused faces. I said it was higher up than Niagara Falls, not taller. Tricked ya. Right now we're at 8,300 feet in elevation. That's 8,000 feet higher up than Niagara Falls. Now we are stuck on this train with each other for quite some time. I like to force you guys to become friends. If you're sitting next to someone you don't know, go ahead and ask them their name, where they're from, their favorite restaurant, maybe their social security number.
Where are you from? Texas. Well, that's where I'm going. What do I need to do there? Train 26, Rollins Terminal. Down here.
We go up 25 feet in elevation. This is where I see a lot of people that weren't paying attention. They kind of start sliding out of their uphill seat and they'll land in the lap of the person across from them. That's the real reason I had you guys introduce yourselves, so it's a little less awkward if that happens today. This specific hill is called Son of a Gun Hill. Back in the day when we had steam engines, we had to have a fireman on board as well, and his job was to shovel coal into a fire to keep steam pressure up to get the train working. As you can see, this is a very steep hill. That's not easy work. And without fail, every single time they finally made it up this hill, that fireman looked over at his engineer and he said, "Man, that hill's a son of a gun." And I'm sure you folks are wondering if we do get any of these rocks or boulders that fall into our tracks. We do. Just the other day I was out here with Bree and we saw a giant rock on the two-seat side. Looked like it was getting ready to roll. Lucky for us, Bree's super strong. She kind of pushed that rock up. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. So I decided to prop 3 rocks under it to hopefully keep it up there and prop it up. I hope it's still there. Okay, I think we're doing okay because we haven't e-braked yet. So on our 2-seat side, I'm assuming you guys can see our handiwork. We call that prop rock. Isn't Bree strong, guys? Look at that. And coming up on our 3-seat side, you're going to see the remains of a fur trapper's cabin. I promise you it once was a cabin. Not very long ago, a rather chunky bear climbed on top and he fell straight through the roof. I guess you could say the roof couldn't bear it. We are now entering Ruxton Park, Colorado. Ruxton Park has a whopping population of 4. Side, you'll see a large pipe. That pipe leads back to the oldest hydroelectric plant this side of the Mississippi, built in the early 1900s. Also on our 3-seat side, you're going to see a white house. That's where a population of 4 resides here in Ruxton Park. They're the caretakers for that hydroelectric plant, and their house is made out of wood from the Halfway House Hotel. If we keep looking straight to the back on the 3-seat side, we're going to see an old stone building that looks a whole lot like a jail. That is the oldest hydroelectric plant west of the Mississippi. It's actually still functional, provides power to over 200 homes down in Manitou Springs. You think you might want to be a caretaker for that hydroelectric plant someday, you have to be 2 things first. The first one is a hydroelectric engineer, duh. And the second one, A Costco member. Reason being, on your 3-seat side, you're going to see a red dirt road. That's the caretaker's driveway. It's only a leisurely 60, that's right, 60 miles into the nearest town, and you cannot get DoorDash out here. Trust me, I've tried. Drive through Pike National Forest. Pike National Forest is 1.4 million acres. To give you all some perspective, you could fit the entire state of Delaware in here and still have a whole lot of wiggle room left over. All that land means there's a whole lot of wildlife out there. I'm not going to guarantee that we will see any from our train today, but if you do, please holler. In Colorado, we like to call the clearing in the forest a park. Coming up on our 2-seat side, we have Deer Park, which is appropriately named because that is the hotspot hangout for mule deer in the evening time. And if we look straight to the back of Deer Park, we'll see some super tall ponderosa pine trees. Those guys are at least 80 years old. The reason I know that is it takes that long just to develop that cinnamon color in their bark. If you ever get the opportunity to, find a ponderosa pine tree one day and give it a big fat hug. Depending on how hydrated the tree is, the bark will smell like vanilla or butterscotch. And on our 3-seat side, I'm sure you've all noticed these trees that have golden leaves with white trunks that almost look like they have little black dots that are drawn on the side of them. Those are aspen trees. Colorado is very, very famous for them. Can you guess why? I'll give you a hint. Those leaves aren't always golden. You might think we're passing about 100 aspen trees right now. We're actually only passing one. A big group of aspen trees like this is called a grove, which is a one-root system. It's the largest plant organism on the entire planet, with the exception of fungus. Not only are aspen trees beautiful, but they're also pretty useful. If you decide you want to get a closer look at the leaves later, and you go on a hike and you feel yourself starting to get a sunburn and there's no sunscreen in sight, don't you panic. Just find an aspen tree because on the bark is a little white powder. You can use that powder as sunscreen. You might look a little silly though. That powder also has the same medicinal properties as aspirin. Sometimes we'll see mule deer that have just given birth chewing on the bark of an aspen tree to get some pain relief. Have any of you ever heard a beautiful thing he's ever seen in his entire life, and that everybody should be able to see it once in their lifetime? But he also said that the burro trip he took was the most uncivilized thing he's ever done as a man. So he went back home to Wisconsin and he organized a big group of investors. Together they all raised $1.5 million. They came back here to Colorado to start construction on the Cog Railway in 1889, and the first passengers reached the summit on June 30th, 1891. Does anyone want to shout out a guess for how much they think a train ticket cost back in 1891? Okay, we got a penny. What was your guess? $5. We got $12. $5 is the winner. Ding, ding, ding. That's incredibly expensive for 1891. You would guess it'd just be a nickel, but no, it was $5. In today's money, that's equivalent to over $165. You had to work for a week straight back then to make that kind of money, and it stayed like that for over 50. Coming up on our 3-seat side, right next to your window, you're going to see one of our old train cars. It's no longer in service. I don't know why they decided to do this, but back in the day, they cut it in half. They threw the other half out into the forest to let the wood rot away, but they decided to keep the other half right here because they wanted to use it as a shelter for hikers in case they get caught in bad weather. Hey Quinn, why is Pikes Peak called Pikes Peak? That's such a good question. Thank you for asking. In 1806, an Army lieutenant named Zebulon Montgomery Pike was exploring the southern boundaries of the Louisiana Purchase. He was looking for the source of the Arkansas River when one day the clouds parted and he saw what he thought was a blue cloud. Obviously, it wasn't a blue cloud, it was the summit of Pikes Peak. So Zebulon Pike decided to grab 26 of his men, and together they set out on a grand expedition to make it to the top. Unfortunately for them, they were doomed from the start because they were wearing their summer uniforms. They did not pack enough food, and they were getting hit over and over again with snowstorms. You never know the weather here in Colorado. Eventually, once they were in waist-deep snow, they had no choice but to give up, and they went home. Zebulon Pike never actually climbed the mountain that's named after him. He did write a lot of journals about this mountain though, and in those journals we know that he called it the Grand Peak because he thought this mountain was somehow 18,000 feet tall, and he also thought that no mortal man would ever make it to the summit. It was later pioneers and explorers that followed in Pike's footsteps. They're the ones that named this mountain after him, and they liked to call it Pike's highest peak. But we know how newspapers like a flashy headline, right? That just wasn't working. So they shortened it to Pikes Peak, and that stuck. Before it was called Pikes Peak, it was actually called James Peak for a very short period of time after botanist Edwin James. He was the first man to summit this mountain about 15 years later after Zebulon Pike tried. And before it was called that, about 100 years before, it was called El Capitan, or the Leader, by Spanish conquistadors. And if we go back another 800 years, the Ute Nation called this mountain Tava Cava. That means Sun Mountain. And we've also found evidence of Clovis culture here, and we're sure they had their own name for this mountain as well. But seeing as those people existed thousands of years before the written language, we will never know what the first name for Pikes Peak was. You guys to look through the trees into the valley. You'll see a large pile of big boulders down there. That area is called the Lion's Den. In the summertime, those rocks get super warm from being out in the sun all day, and on rare occasions, park rangers will actually find mountain lions sunbathing there. And on even rarer occasions, the mountain lions find the park rangers sunbathing there. That area is also as far as Zebulon Pike's expedition ever got. Now, snow may have stopped him, but it does not stop us. Believe it or not, we're open year-round. To help us do that, we have a 13-foot tall snowplow that we can stick on our tracks.
This is about where we stopped in April, right? Right around here? Is this
A little bit higher.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
3, an English professor from Massachusetts named Catherine Lee Bates was teaching at Colorado College when she decided to take her carriage up Pikes Peak for a day trip. While she was going up the mountain, she was so awestruck by the views she could see through her carriage window that she began writing a poem. That poem actually became very, very popular and was set to a piece of music called Materna, and we might know that very same poem today as America the Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, on your 3-seat side, I'd like to welcome you all to Inspiration Point. These are the views that inspired America the Beautiful.
28, you have a high ball. 20, 120. Crémaillère,
on a clear day, we have about 200 miles of visibility from this point. If we look at the bottom of the mountains, we can see the edge of Manitou Springs. That big pink thing down there is a rock in Garden of the Gods. That's specifically the Camel's Rock. That goes out into Colorado Springs, that area with all the dark trees, black forest, and all the way on the very edge of the horizon, drum
This is
roll
where they
please,
stop.
is Kansas.
So, this part I've already done. This part I haven't seen yet.
Lake Moraine. Lake Moraine is the only naturally occurring body of water that we have here in Pike National Forest. The other 9 bodies of water are all reservoirs. I know that looks like a reservoir because there's a dam down there. That dam was only added a couple years back to try to increase the water volume, and that plan ultimately failed. Like I said, Lake Moraine is a natural lake. It was created by a glacier from the last ice age. It's 46 feet deep at its deepest point, and there are trout in there like you would not believe. But I am so sorry to my fishermen on board. That road you see down there is a private road. Trees are growing at such a funny angle outside your window, and why I'm able to do the super cool Michael Jackson move right now, that's because we're on a 25% grade again. This is the longest 25% grade we have here on the mountain. It's over a mile long. We call this the Big Hill. If I was to go up front and stand by our engineer Bree and look all the way back to the back of car 3, that's equivalent to a 4-story drop. This is also my friendly reminder to everybody to keep sipping. We're 180 miles per hour. We're sure they're actually even higher than that. At 180 miles per hour is when the handheld gauge we were using to measure that wind was shattered into a bunch of pieces. tree line. Tree line at Pikes Peak is down at 11,500 feet. If you can't tell, that's where the trees stop growing. That happens because the low temperature and high altitude create such a poor quality of soil up here that a lot of plants have a really hard time surviving. The only thing that we'll see above tree line is Arctic tundra. Trees there, that's actually an old carriage trail. The last time that carriage trail was used was 1902. The reason we're still able to see it today is because all of this grassy vegetation is Arctic tundra. Arctic tundra takes 100 years just to spread 1 inch. So we're going to see that trail for centuries more to come. That's also the same trail that Miss Catherine Lee Bates took back in 1893. We got 2 yellow-bellied marmots sticking up out of the grass down there. They look a whole lot like meerkats, 3 seats side. Quinn, what's a marmot? It looks a lot like a beaver. It's the largest species of groundhog. These guys are getting ready to go into hibernation. Usually they're not this big. And usually we see a little bit more of them. Their favorite hobby is to play chicken with the train. The only place on the mountain, aside from the summit, that you can see completely to the east and completely to the west simply by turning your heads. Coming up on our 2-seat side, we'll be able to see completely to the east. There's Colorado Springs out to Kansas one more time, just in case you missed those views at Inspiration Point. We can see all the way to the west. I want you to look past those storm cells out there, which is super cool that you can see the rain out there. You're going to see a faded mountain range. Those are the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. They're about 165 miles away from here, and they turn into the continental divide that wraps around the mountain. two-seat side, I want you to look at that storm cloud that has rain falling out of it. Right under that, you'll see a mountain that has absolutely no vegetation. It almost looks like there are giant steps up the side, and if you look at the very top, you might be able to see some structures up there. That's the Cripple Creek and Victor Gold Mine that first opened all the way back in 1890. Today, it's responsible for producing $1.237 million of gold every single day. That's about 30 pounds of gold that's coming out of there every single day. If you want to check them out, they just reopened tours. No free samples though. And just recently, they discovered a new vein of gold that they'll be mining for many, many years to come.
We were trying for a long time to see how to drive the big shell way out there. It's like go past the colorful mountains. Beautiful. I think there's one everywhere people do. Probably to find it. Grandpa watches it all the time, huh? The gold mining show.
Gold Rush.
Sorry.
It's like dark on the outside, like lighter inside.
Can take fall if you want.
And in this weather, it's
I just wanted to get to the top. Because I'm never going to climb it.
I usually get quite a few of you that are curious about the rocks up here. You'll notice that this Pikes Peak granite is much pinker than it was down at the bottom there. And it totally looks like these rocks have been blown to smithereens by dynamite, right? We didn't use as much dynamite as you might think we did. The reason the rocks look like this is because of a natural process called ice wedging. Ice wedging is when water seeps into the cracks of these rocks. Overnight, the temperature drops, which means the water inside the rock is going to freeze, expand, and it breaks the rock open from the inside. And this process is happening over thousands and thousands of years, making the rock smaller and smaller. Two-seat side, if you look very closely in the rocks there, you might see some very, very tiny tree trunks. You might notice a couple wires just kind of strewn about up there. That's the original telegraph system that Mr. Zalman Simmons hung back in the 1800s with the help of his burro. Car racing fans on board? you for raising your hand. Usually everyone's quiet. You guys are gonna like this next bit. Coming up on our 3-seat side, you're gonna see a white van making its way down the mountain. Those cars are driving on the Pikes Peak Highway. The Pikes Peak Highway is 19 miles of switchbacks, 156 hairpin bends, and as you're about to see, there are no guardrails on this highway. If that doesn't give you enough adrenaline, they hold a race every single year to see who can drive up the highway the fastest. I am not kidding you. It's called the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. In 2018, I got very lucky. I decided to drive up this highway and I got to witness the fastest record ever being set by a French driver named Romain Dumas. He was a Porsche factory driver, but on this day, he was driving a Volkswagen IDR, which was an experimental electric race car. Romain Dumas made it up this highway in 7 minutes and 57 seconds. When they had the race this June, I may or may not have stuck away from the train to talk to one of the drivers. This particular driver made it up that road in 9 minutes. He said his top speed was 130 miles per hour, averaging about 70 miles per hour. Yes, cars do roll off this highway all the time. If you want to see what that looks like, there are videos all over YouTube. If some of you are wondering why that highway may look a little bit familiar to you, that is one of the shooting locations for the 7th Fast and Furious movie. We got another yellow-bellied marmot on the 3-seat side. He kind of looks, a couple of them, they kind of look like loaves of bread just hanging out on top of the rocks there. If you want to learn more about yellow-bellied marmots, those guys live to be about 15 years old. Their diet consists of Arctic tundra. They like insects. I've read that sometimes they'll go below tree line to get some bird eggs. And when they get desperate, they eat each other. But aren't they just so cute? Quinn, you said there was going to be a 26% grade. I did not lie to you. This is it. This is our steepest and our final climb today. Coming up on our 3-seat side, you can see the visitor center. Can I have everybody do me a giant favor? Would you guys push your windows up? I would hate for you all to come back to the big red refrigerator. Thank you guys so much. That saved me 5 minutes from doing it by myself. All right, now I need to make sure I'm super clear. What time are we leaving the summit? 2:40. You guys are great. At 2:30, our engineer Bree is going to sound the horn for 3 long blasts. That's your cue to start walking back to the train. At 2:35, she'll sound the horn for 1 long blast. That's your cue to start running. All right, I need everyone to take their seats, and we need to remain seated until this train has come to a complete stop, and we are not going to get up until we hear Bree sound the horn. That lets us know that she's put the brakes in place and it's safe for us to get up. This train will not move from where we parked it. We are not turning it around. You will be in the exact same spot that you are in now. Please take note of where you are so you don't get lost on your way back. All right, can I get everyone to take their seats for me, please?